buenas tardes, bonjour, bienvenidos, buenas noches a todos, todas y todes. Welcome everyone. My name is Miret Rodriguez. I am VLACC's Vice President and Chair of the Programming Committee. I'm also an art historian and I will be your host for today's event. Doris is also here with us, and so is Angela. Angela is our marketing coordinator, and Doris is our volunteer taking of our special visual arts program. And they are both going to be here making sure that everything runs smoothly, that you're all feeling welcome, and that all of your answers are addressed. But before we begin, I do want to acknowledge that we are hosting this event from the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Musqueam, the Squamish, and the Tsleil-Waututh people. And we do want to encourage all of you to read more and to understand the history of the place where we live in. And so Doris is actually going to share a really useful link with us. It's called 150 Acts of Reconciliation. So you'll be able to fetch all of those sources on the chat. And also, for those that don't know us yet, VLACC stands for the Vancouver Latin American Cultural Center Society. We don't have an actual center yet, and this so your participation in this event is helping us get there. As a nonprofit organization, our mandate is to share a deeper understanding of Latin American arts and culture. And if you still don't know about us, please visit our website. You'll also be receiving a really cool newsletter that our executive director put together with very helpful links and all of our next events. So we'll share that with you as well on the chat. As you listen to this event, if you have a good question, please don't be afraid to post it on the chat. We will address them towards the end of the call. Your participation is always encouraged. And I'm really just thrilled today to be here with you so that I can introduce you to, for those that don't know Michelle yet, that I can introduce you to Michelle Bourget Morales and to her really cool work that I think you're all going to love. I Michelle's work at Slice of Life Gallery. So this is a gallery in East Vancouver that if you still haven't visited, I highly recommend. When I saw your work, Michelle, I was like, what is this cool thing? And I related so much. I think I read some Spanish on one of your sculptures, and I was just really curious in the textures and the colors. I wasn't sure what I was looking at, but I knew that I was taken. And so to have you here today is such a pleasure. It's my really big pleasure to introduce all of you to Michelle, who is actually just gonna looking at my other screen. Here's beautiful Michelle, really cool portrait, by the way. Michelle, she was born in Tamaulipas, Mexico. She moved to Canada in 2011. And through her art, she explores and cross-examines the privileges, issues, and complexities of her life as an immigrant woman. Her Mexican culture, background, and history are key in her work. Her artwork is concerned with abjection, class, and gender dynamics. She bores these subjects in a playful and titillating manner. And the images that you see here were actually picked by Doris. Thank you, Doris, for that. So we've highlighted of Tamaulipas for you. For those that don't know, that is Mexico in I guess it's kind of like a beige color, and Tamaulipas in red. So right at the border of the US, and also with a really cool long coast. And Michelle, what are we looking at in that photo underneath? Is that like a cathedral in your center, in the center of your city? Do you recognize that place?
I'm pretty sure that this must be like Ciudad Victoria, like Victoria City. I'm not entirely sure. I don't think I've ever seen it, but it's really nice. And it definitely encompasses like the weather, the flora, and obviously the very religious background of my state and probably Mexico in general.
I love it. Well, Michelle, welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for being here again. I did have like this silly question for you about your neighborhood to start off, but you this afternoon, I was like, okay, what is this really cool outfit that you have going on? I was wondering if you can tell us more about it because I know that you know the type of hat you're wearing, and I think also your share it relates to where you're from. It's probably maybe your way to be connected to Mexico. Is that so?
Yes, like ultimately, I come from rural Mexico, and I grew up in a bunch of like around or surrounded by ranchers and lots of like that type of economical way of living. And so, like wearing the cowboy hat and like the denim and all this stuff, like it really makes me feel very connected to where I grew up and like kind of the type of people or the type of style that people would wear in town, like regardless of like whether or not that was like there's like their fashion style, but it was literally because of the way that people dress, because it's literally so attached to like the ideology and the aesthetics and you know the way of living. So I feel like in a way, yes, it does make me feel very connected, and kind of powerful, to be honest, to be wearing a cowboy hat and just walking around town, specifically here, is just like really funny to me. But I think it's great. It makes sense.
I love it. I think, yeah, that hat was made for you. Did you actually buy it in Mexico or did you find it here?
I actually bought it in my hometown only market because we only have one. And yeah, and like I brought it all the way here. I actually bought three. This is just one of many.
I love it. I'm sure there's like a lot of care that these hats require. What do we call these in Mexico? Um, like just sombreros?
Era vaquero, sí.
Cowboy hats then.
Yeah, literally like the full translation, un sombrero de vaquero. Yeah.
Love it. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for pulling out this outfit for us today. It's really inspiring. But I do want to go back to my silly question, actually. I am curious, where are you connecting from? Like, where's your studio? Can we visit your studio in person?
Of course, you can definitely visit my studio in person. I'm currently situated in Duplex Art Society. So we are an artist center now in the eyes of the government, which we have about, I would like to say 25 members. There might be less, there might be more. I'm not entirely sure how many exactly. And we all share this beautiful space in an industrial pretty much building here in Estracona, Vancouver, or so-called Vancouver.
So we will.
It is here. Honestly, I love it. We have cement floors, and for some reason, I have this affinity with like concrete. So I love my studio. I love the area. It's like very industrial. And if I could change anything about it, it would be the amount of self-storage buildings that are getting up in here. But besides that, is pretty charming.
Yeah, storage is always something. We're gonna get to that. We're gonna talk about so many things, and we'll talk about space as well. So, okay, how about we do this? We'll go over some of your images. People in the room, they are very welcome to, as I flip through some images of your work, everyone that has joined us today, you're very welcome to share with us some of the like questions that you might have about her work or things that you see that you spot or things that her work evokes. So you can just share with that on the chat if you like. But while I go through those images, Michelle, maybe they're not chronological. I guess if anything, we have chosen the newest works first. So maybe we can talk about those first. And I think you have some of them behind you. So we have this gorgeous piece here that with my kind of Mexican heritage, when I see it, I see barro. I feel connected to your pieces that way, but maybe where you were coming from is somewhere else. I was wondering if you could tell us about this piece. It seems to be one of your most recent ones, correct?
Yes, this piece specifically is actually going to be part of my upcoming show. selfless plug that it's gonna have on that it's gonna be on August. And this piece is one of my most recent. I've been working on some new stuff that are really encompassing sculpture and the daily life, and bringing the functionality to my sculptures. It's been a really interesting and challenging thing, especially because of space. And we talk about space again. And I think it's really important to like, I don't know, like I'm really trying to figure out a way into which we can add some sort of functionality in like the physical matter besides the conceptual function of a sculpture or an art piece, which sometimes can get a little bit forgotten. So I think with this specific work, I'm working towards those ideas and trying to kind of like merge myself into the domestic and living with art and all of that.
Thank you. So there are these shapes there, these sort of glands that we actually see them throughout your work. What is going on with these? I guess, I mean, I see some sort of glands. I don't know what you might call them, but there seems to be this repetition of these, yeah, these kind of pear-like shapes going on here. What are these?
I honestly, obviously up to interpretation, but for me, it's the idea of the seed is very important because of like feminist theory and because of many things. But I think this idea of having a seed just in general is something that is very powerful, especially for me as a cis woman. So it's really interesting also how the seed can encompass like femininity, can encompass like new growth and things like that, but it's also very like connected to, for example, to the men as well. So it's like this kind of like concept that is across board any gender. So I think it's really interesting for me to play with those kind of like merging points of both, like the flux of femme and masc and all these things, especially as a queer artist. So I think that that is translated often, very often in my work as these little kind of like things that are added on top of these very voluptuous and interesting shapes.
Yes, interesting shapes indeed. We definitely have, yeah. So yes, of course, very open to interpretation. Like it would be, I guess it is hard to describe. Like there's some sort of like cucumber shapes in there. As yeah, as I said before, to me, maybe some sort of glands. So seeds very important. And actually, one of my questions was that it was what are some sources of inspiration for your work? So clearly, you've just spoken about gender in a sense and reproduction, maybe biology, but I'm sure there's many other sources of inspiration. Can you tell us about a few?
Yes, of course. Definitely gender, definitely feminism and radicalism, for example. It's really important for me to have work or make work that is political. Um, so those are some of the things that I really try to embed into my work. And so in terms of inspiration, besides that ideology that is like bouncing back and forward in my head like a ping pong ball, must be like the everyday. For me, the everyday is my true inspiration. The people I meet, the things I eat, quite literally the relationships that I have. Those are truly what inspire me, and kind of like it's just kind of comes and goes. It could be the sky, it could be, I don't know, the veggie hot dog I ate. It's like it's everything, and I think that's something that is very eminent and powerful while doing my work, and obviously being critical about it.
So I'm sorry to jump around, but you did mention hot dog. But I do think your work does that to me as well. It makes me kind of go to all these different places at the same time. And so, what is this?
I love it. Honestly, like this is literally things that I found at a thrift store. And it's just like when I put them together, I was like, this is a sculpture. And then I was like, how can I make this a sculpture that can be like gifted or like, you know, like mass produced. And so I was like a picture, a photograph of this kind of like still life, which is another project that I'm currently doing. And these are just things that I found at the thrift store. And I thought it was really interesting to put them together, and how these kind of mundane object that I found, once you put them together, it changes completely. Like it's not only now a hot dog and um like a teddy bear or like a monkey. It just starts becoming something else. And I think for me, those are the very interesting kind of like twitches, I would like to call them, in like while I'm critically making, and these kind of decisions that just become completely something different, and people are kind of able to grasp and kind of like chuckle about it, like, that's interesting, you know. And for me, that's like I'm doing my job correctly, if I dare to say that.
You can't really hear it.
I think you definitely are. I think I need to mute someone here. Sorry. Yes. So I think you definitely do achieve that. I can't recall if I've seen this if I've seen the objects in real life or not. Because I wonder if at your exhibition at Slice, this was your poster, perhaps. Because I just feel like I've seen this image in relationship to your work a lot.
Yeah, because I think it's just funny. It's literally funny, intriguing. This image was my post. Oh, well, it was my my solo show at Slice of Life. I believe the first time that you went with me, or that you met my work, went with me, met my work, was at a group show which I had with my beautiful studio partner, Hee Jun. And so this was the next show that I had there, and it was just so funny. And I just covered the whole walls with it. It was kind of hilarious because
yes, you're right. I was like, I've seen this so many times. Yeah, thank you for that. And no, I totally do think you achieved that with that, and also with your ceramic or sculpture work. So that was actually my next question. Like, I know we've spoken before about, you know, maybe differences or similarities between ceramics and sculpture, and that's something I wanted to ask you. To you, what sort of similarities do you see between sculpture and ceramics? I know it's a really big question, but just kind of thinking of an answer for like a larger audience. In a nutshell, what would those similarities be for you between ceramics and sculpture?
well, obviously, like as you might see, my work is, I work with ceramics, but I'm definitely not a purist. I love mixed media. I consider myself a maximalist. So for me, like making these sculptures which are made of ceramics is just like, there is not really like a difference to me, because it's my artistic practice and quite literally what I do for the most part. It's just like it comes naturally. Like I don't even think about the fact that I'm making a sculpture anymore, because that's like solid my go-to, which is interesting now because I'm trying to move into this kind of like direction of functionality, because most of my sculptures are, their purpose is to be a sculpture and to like spark conversation and to think about the things that they're saying. So I think like now I'm trying to, it's funny because now I'm trying to be like, no, ceramics functionality, let's dive into this. And it's been a journey. So for me, that relationship or that division between ceramics and sculpture is non-existent at all, because I consider myself a sculptor more than I do like a functional ceramicist. So yeah, so I don't think that line is really there.
I love it. No, I agree with you. So this on the screen right now, we see the piece that really captured me when I saw your work. Definitely, I think it was a pump. I think it was everything at the same time, to be honest. Obviously, it was these kind of like brushes that you see at the base of the sculpture. This sort of, I guess it's the sort of brick that we use in Canada, because in Mexico our bricks are different. The I guess the phrase "cállate, macho," like "shut up, macho," right? Like this imperative.
Shut up, man. Yeah.
Sorry.
It's like pretty much says like shut up, man, but yeah.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Definitely. And then we see these pom-poms that for any of you that have been to Mexico, You've probably seen these pom-poms a lot. Like I know that they're all over Oaxaca and Chiapas. And to me, when I saw that, like I instantly connected without knowing that you were from Mexico. So that really called my attention. And then you start like unraveling your work, right? And there's like these beads and then these like different textures and this kind of like gooey, droopy things that I wanted to touch so bad, but I didn't. I still want to. And then I grabbed my phone and I took a picture from the top and I was like, whoa, what is this? There's like this whole other angle of this sculpture from the top. And to me, like what I saw, like I saw this sort of cervix in a sense. I did see this kind of like female reproductive organ that was just so complex and just so enigmatic. But I don't know. Again, that was my reading. I mean, I'm here to listen to you. And I'm just wondering, like, obviously there's a lot of work that went behind this work. So I'm just wondering if you can share a little bit of that with us.
Of course. So pretty much like you're pretty spot on. Like I was really thinking about like reproduction and kind of like all these pinks and all this goopiness, but also like all this exuberance and this kind of like dripping of quite literally like everything, like this kind of source of like constant maximalism, which I was like pretty much like trying to portray in this specific piece. As I said before, I'm a maximalist. More is more, and more for me is like great. So when I'm working in most of my sculptures, I really want to make them like very exotic, very kind of like interesting to look at, because for me it's like very important to grab the audience and kind of like invite them in, and then once they're in there, they start kind of like connecting the dots, or they start thinking about, is this a cervix, is this just a sculpture, what does the Spanish words mean, what is it about, and kind of like it start kind of like bouncing back and forward into the possibilities of what this could be. But yeah, like I was pretty much like thinking about like reproduction and labor, obviously, as you can see, and obviously the mix of objects like already found, and kind of like embedding them in the work, because I think seeing the block and seeing the little brushes, it really connects us, like connects the everyday and things that we have seen in the past, and we can fully be like construction, cleaning, and all these other kind of like concepts that can help you kind of dissect the work a bit more deeply.
So thank you so much for that, Michelle. And like I know your work and your personality as well. It makes me happy, it makes me joyful. Like you have this like energy that is very contagious. But I do feel like even though your work like called me and like made me question, like made me smile and like be like, what is this? And like I'm totally digging it. I don't know what's going on, but I love it. But then also I felt like there was, for me at least, there was this kind of like seriousness to it, of course, because I don't know if it was during the time, I'm not sure if it was March last year, but I felt like this reading of violence towards women in Mexico when I saw your work. So I think that's also why it was very powerful. And so I'm wondering if at any point that is also something that you were trying to digest, and it's also a source where this work comes from.
Fully. Like, as I said before at the beginning, my work needs to be political. My work needs to be talking about things that matter to me. And sometimes, like, I truly believe that making for the sake of making is all right, but making with a purpose, it's, for me, is what my purpose is. Like making with the idea of like women's rights or queer rights, and like, all these kind of like heavily political statements, without having to fully set them out loud, but like put in the work so people can get there. And hopefully my work is able to kind of like make that like a pathway into understanding, or deeper understanding of like political issues that not only women in Mexico have, but women everywhere, like we, like in Canada as well. Canada. So, you know, like I think for me is really important to kind of like bring that kind of conversation to the forefront. And what a best way to do it with a banging sculpture that will just be like, what is this? And it will unleash much more like kind of like deep thought into what it is, what does it mean, and when you related that to the political state of specifically Mexico due to the Spanish writing, but in general, it's just that's what I'm here to do, if that makes sense. That's my calling.
Thank you. And again, I think you definitely achieve it. So thank you for that piece. Like to me, seriously, like I don't know how many minutes I spent with that piece. I was just like, I'm just so many things, so many feelings and thoughts were coming to me. And so again, I'm jumping around. I'm sorry. Your work does that to me, but I want to talk about two things. But I guess firstly, let's just talk about the space, because that's something we've mentioned since the beginning of the call, and we're kind of in this topic of the space that a woman has to claim. And for you as a queer artist in Vancouver, working in ceramics, I know there's like a whole background of that. You know, you have this kind of story of having to claim your space with your work. So I'm wondering if you can share a little bit of that with us, maybe going back a little bit to your school and what that experience was like to take quite literally the space.
Of course. So I first did my first 2 years of art school, which that is just good on its own. That's quite a privilege to be going to art school, quite literally, at least for me, or for everybody actually. But I started at Langara College, and after being at Langara College, I went to Emily Carr. And so at Emily Carr, we have these massive kilns, which at that point, I was like, for the next 2 years of my life, I'm just gonna work as big as I can. I just wanna like take all of the space, which ultimately not everybody was like super happy about, because it's like a shared studio, and you know, anyways. So for the next 2 years, like I was working massively, and for me, it was really important to kind of assert myself, coming from a different school, coming from Mexico as an immigrant woman, and just fully being like, I'm here and I'm here to take this space, and quite literally did. And so I created these massive sculptures, and it was really interesting because I didn't keep any of them. I think I have one of those massive sculptures. Everything else got recycled and thrown away. But I thought it was really interesting to not only take that space, but also part or leave that space behind. Like, you know, like after creating them, I was like, well, like that's it. It was kind of poetic because it was like my student work, but it's really interesting how we perceive space in like the conceptual way, like as like taking space with your ideas and your sense of self, but also quite literally take a space in a physical format, which, as you can see, ceramic sculptures, we tend to like accumulate space. We said in the community, or like I've been told, like, oh, you got the sculptures curse, because you will just collect a bunch of stuff. And then it's true, you kind of do. So there is a point where you have to just part, and that's something that I try to practice quite often.
Thank you, Michelle. Sorry, I don't know. I think I can't hear you anymore. Or no, you just finished your sentence, right? Thank you. Yes. I was like, wait, just the way that your sentence ended, I was like, thank you. So actually, like on screen, I don't know where I fished this from, but is this one of your earlier works where you're having this kind of hanging panels that, you know, if we look at it from the front, we might see a painting, but I believe there's also something on the back, and then you have these tennis balls stuck on it. Are these some of your earliest works? Did you do this during your school?
So that's actually, as you might know, there was a pandemic in 2020. So this is, yeah, I don't know if you noticed, but So this was a bit of like one of my latest works done before. This would have been some of the work that I would have presented in my graduation. Show, which didn't happen. So this is kind of like still, well, it's 2 years old, so technically, yeah, it's still work. So if you're not, if it's not a few months, then I don't know if it's new. Anyways, that time is a construct. It doesn't really align, but yeah, like this would have a painting on the other side, and for me it was really interesting kind of like bringing paintings into the sculptor realm, like, and it was really interesting to be like, oh, I love the painting on this side, but I also love the painting on that side. And it's like, well, I guess you gotta just put it in the middle of your living room and live with it as a new wall. So I think it was really interesting things that I was working
And take space, right? Going back to that.
and take space. And honestly, like these, you cannot see it, but Emily Carr has like a almost like a triple ceiling. So I just like bounce them from them. And then I told faculty, I was like, so I want to put some like paintings in your big ceilings. Like, is that okay? And they were like, I think it will hold. And I was like, okay. It had never happened before. So I was like, so it was again so interesting to be taken and asserting the space, even within the institution, which to me was kind of like, haha, I'm taking all these space. And it was like really funny and honestly amazing to just see. And I did was like, well, like they're there, they're holding, so I think it's okay. And that was my
I've seen the and I feel like I missed here, but unfortunately. But maybe you can just like tell me a little bit about the tennis balls. I know that you know, like found objects are and familiar objects are important for you, but I'm still curious. Like, where did you get these tennis balls? Like, why tennis
honestly,
balls?
again, like it comes to like these kind of already mades and the idea of like bouncing and the fact that they're balls interesting to me. I think like objects can hold like such a heavy value, like even like just face value, but also conceptual value. So I think that for me, bringing these objects that might seem like I don't know, bouncy and you know, like things like that, it's really interesting because then you start kind of like making again connotations onto what those objects mean to you. So tennis balls was something that I was just like, okay, like it's bouncy, it like represents like, you know, like kind of like pinpointing around, it represents balls for the sake of a ball and like so many more things. So for me, like using these kind of objects really like kind of like settles my work into this specific time and especially this specific human experience of just knowing what the object is. So I think that's something that I just constantly do. And tennis balls are great. I think they're so fun. Like wooden balls are just fun, I guess.
They are fun. Yeah, definitely. There's lots of play, and dogs love them too, right?
It's actually like
So
play.
exactly, yes, definitely. And going back, I want to go back to two things at the same time. So one of them is just continue speaking about these found objects, but also perhaps your Latin American heritage or Mexican heritage. Going back to these pom-poms, right? Because that is something that we see in your work recurrently. And I don't know if these are found objects or these are more like a reference to where you're from. Are you buying these? Are you making them?
I made every single pompon and every single tassel. And sometimes people try to come for me being like, where did you buy them? I was like, I made them. Like these hands made them. There was a point in my life where I could do pompons without even looking, which it's just like this mechanical labor of making them that also textiles and all these kind of things. And for like, yeah, specifically from Mexico, like there's like such a rich textile culture there that I think it's just like really beautiful and it's super and it's so maximalist that when you go to certain part of Mexico, you just see pompons everywhere or just see color and textiles and fun patterns. And for me, that was really important to kind of like bring to my work specifically, because I love tassels. Like, I'm a maximalist. If you ask me like no tassels or tassels and like French, I'd be like tassels and French all the way. So like for me, it's very important to really bring that exuberance to my work.
Thank you for saying that. We mentioned before how when you go to states like Chiapas and or Oaxaca, you do see a lot of pom-poms and keychains and these like just very intricate crafts that entail a lot of work and textiles. And so thank you for that, because that's definitely something that, although I was able to kind of relate and read it, now when you mention it, it kind of reminds me of that work of yours, Cayate Macho, in the sense that it makes me think about these kind of more serious issues, like all this labor and all this work that these Mexican women do, and many times we don't value that, right? Like, of course, we value it in the sense like this is gorgeous, this is like really lovely work, but their work should probably be worth more money in a sense, and there's just so
We
much.
value the product, but we don't value the labor, and that's something that is really interesting when it comes to, like, for example, being a woman. Like, we value women for being women, but sometimes we disregard the labor that we have to do, like as activists, as mothers, as like lovers, as everything, pretty much.
Agreed. Yes, thank you, Michelle. And also on this image, it's kind of hard to tell, but this is actually quite a big piece, and it's very intricate, and yeah, it just looks like I don't even know how you did this. But do you remember like how the dimensions of this? Because I know this is big, but I can't really like spot like the meters, I guess.
It's pretty big. I think it could be as tall as I am, and I'm 170, I guess. I'm considered kind of tall, apparently, but yeah.
I love it. Thank you, Michelle. So, do you consider yourself as a young artist? Do you consider that you still have a lot of work to do to feel like 100% a full-time artist? Do you feel that right now?
Oh yeah, like unfortunately, my rent check does not come purely from art, but I'm more than happy to like send you what I got available, and anybody can purchase it to help me achieve that. But being an emerging artist is ultimately hard, especially I feel like sometimes when you're making like work that might be misunderstood or not appreciated, or when it's like too political or too critical, sometimes or not commercial enough, sometimes just being like a full-time freelance artist can be a little bit hard. But I think that at this point, like, I'm having fun, and obviously I would love to do this 24/7 every day, but currently I think it's hard for the arts, full stop. Any artist, it's just hard. Like, to be creative and making your livelihood out of creativity is like really hard, whether your work is commercial or not or whatever. It's something that we could get better as a society, because like we are honestly pretty cool. So I think we should like fund the arts more, because we're the ones bringing these kind of like topics to the forefront and really like put in ourselves out there for the world to see. So it's a very vulnerable position to be at, and I feel like we should be paid more. But that's me.
I agree with you 100%. And I'm sure that the people that are listening to us today feel the same. And that's why I'm always super thankful for all of you to be here, because that also shows your support, like to just listen. And yeah, so also, yes, I'm really interested in seeing your list of available works, because yes, big fan here. um, and right, so okay, so thank you for sharing those challenges of being a young and emerging artist. And I'm wondering, do you ever sense an extra challenge or maybe an extra advantage for with having your Latin American heritage? Because I mean, already, being a woman, being a queer artist in Vancouver, and also an immigrant. So I don't know if that adds to the layers of hardships for you.
I mean, 100%. Like, I feel like sometimes we tend to forget that queer BIPOC, especially, I'm a white Mexican, but like queer BIPOC people, immigrant people have a little bit of a bigger challenge when it comes to getting a job, finding the same opportunities, you know, like that is just what it is. I don't conform to it, and obviously sometimes you have to work extra hard to just be seen and being perceived into this like systemic spaces, you know, that perhaps value certain things or people more than others. So I think that yes, it has been a challenge, but also it is a privilege for me to be, first of all, a white skin, so I'm pretty fair skinned, and that is a privilege on its own. Second of all, being able to have post-secondary education, that's something everybody has. So obviously, and being in Canada or Canada, it's also another privilege, and that has allowed me to kind of like delve into the complexities of being here, being from Mexico, the struggles that I could find here, but also the privileges that I do have as a person being away from Mexico and being able to live in Vancouver, which is like a pretty expensive city. So in a way, like just for being who I am, like always there's gonna be a flux of things that like makes you feel uncomfortable, makes you feel grateful for. And I feel like sometimes through art, I'm able to kind of like work with those complexities and yeah, and try to like navigate a way of having representation and having and feeling belonged, which is ultimately something that as immigrant people, we sometimes tend to like feel like we don't belong anywhere or everywhere or either or. So I think those complexities are important, and obviously, as I said, privileges and also things that are not as privileged, right? So yeah.
Thank you, Michelle. I'm pretty sure many of us can relate here. So listening to you, yeah, it's such a treat. I really do thank you for that. Like every time I speak with artists, I'm always learning. I'm always feeling understood as well because I don't have that sort of outlet to express ideas. And so this is why like these kind of conversations are such a treat for people like me, and I'm guessing for other people that are in this call. I'm pretty sure we also have other fellow artists. And but anyways, why don't we now just kind of look into your space? So thank you so much for opening those doors to us. And there's so many things in the background I'm so curious about, and I'm sure our audience is as well. So why don't we at this point, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to unmute yourself as Michelle walks around and shows us. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that we can see you fully. So I do recommend for everyone else to, I think, go to the options speaker view so that we can see Michelle on our screen.
Hi, everyone. So this is my studio. My name is Michelle, she, her. And this is my studio currently. I'm not gonna lie, I did try to make it nice and clean, but it's as clean as a ceramic studio could ever be. We are dustful. So I literally put everything out. I have some of my sculptures. I thought that I would have enough time to like make a sculpture before my call today, but obviously it's still there, so it's definitely not finished. Some of my old work, some of my new work, some of my work in process. Yeah, and obviously more work. My materials. I love colors, so you will see pops of color everywhere, like pinks and random blues and stuff like that. I do share a studio with my beautiful and most talented other ceramicist, Hee Jun An, and we share a studio. Currently, this is my half. Some of my work that has not been fired has been fired. Other stuff, glaze materials like chemicals that were most of these ones were donated. Other sculptures, and apparently a bunch of boxes and more chemicals to make glazes. I love stuff, even though I try to live a minimalist and kind of like a minimalist life. That is not who I am. So I definitely have a lot of boxes and bags and clothes, I guess, or studio clothes and things of the sort, and buckets full of like clay that I certainly have neglected and need to get back into. So yeah, that's pretty much my studio space. And that's some of the pieces that I decided to just broadcast for all of you.
Thank you. What does that say? Oh, land bag. Nice. Love it.
Yeah, well, you know, you gotta let the people know.
Yes, you can focus that.
Yeah.
I wonder, I'm sure some people have questions. If you're feeling shy, you can place your questions on the chat. You can also unmute yourself. And actually, we do have a question here. So, okay, so Angela is curious to know. Yeah, so going back to that kind of space and storage topic, right? What do you do with them? But I guess now we can see that you have some in your studio.
Some of them are here. Some of these are on loan. Not everything. I had to bring some of them back just so we can have this beautiful conversation.
Wow, thank you.
I'm sorry.
Thank you for that. Thank you
Yeah,
for
it's okay. But yeah, so I do have some of them. Some of them I have not been able to part with, but as you start making your the work, there's always like editing, and for me, like I definitely do edit a lot of stuff out, and by editing it means like pretty much destroying it all completely, just because I truly believe that there's not that much space in the world, and why should I be the one hoarding it, you know? And unless it has a beautiful home where it's gonna be appreciated and kind of like carry through forever, which you are all welcome to do so. You can always reach out to me. I'll sell you anything. So yeah, but besides that, like it's just kind of like this kind of constant editing of like space. And now I'm working on much more smaller iterations of my work, just because again I'm trying to like delve into these domestic kind of spaces and how you can have art in domestic spaces that perhaps don't take as much space but also have like a heavy value into people's homes, I guess. Yeah,
very cool.
it's a great
So right
question.
next to you, I see this little, yeah, so this is work in progress. And that's what all of your works look like before they're painted.
Yeah, so this is, well, everything depends. Like this is pretty much like dark clay. I believe that this is gonna fire a little bit more, like it's gonna fire like this color a little bit less dark. But I also work with like white clay, which allows me to put more color into that. It's like just much more easier if you have a white canvas than a black canvas, for example, or like a darker canvas. So the same thing goes with clay. So right now I'm working on these body of work, which would be more raw in regards of like there won't be that much color, I think, but honestly, don't take my word for it because I certainly do love color.
That might change.
Yeah, that might change.
I see behind you, there are the those tennis balls that I saw. And now you're speaking about editing, right? So that little, I guess, plinth or base, you had another work on top of that, the one that,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
so honestly, I take so much I love making little plints out of things like this, again, like adding the already mades. I actually just wanted to put this here because I love this piece is one of my most favorite pieces, the green with purple, talking about green wave feminism, and like also the color of like purple as feminist, like more like, you know, old school feminist again. So I was like, this piece is just honestly one of my favorites, and I was like, it deserves a nice plinth, and I really like the tennis ball plinth, so I put it there for the time being. But yes.
it is a very cool one. Also, like when I saw this piece, like I also wanted to like move it because it just felt like it had this rolling motion, but I was like, I'm not gonna touch it. It's so hard to resist to
I
not touch
know.
the works.
And I think those things are the things that are interesting, right? When you start thinking like of moving the sculpture or touching the sculpture, that's like for me like the most flattering thing you could say, because to me that's inviting. It's making you want things and kind of like pursue them. So I think that for me it's just like, yay, I'm doing it right, mom. So I think
Yes.
that's cool. Yeah.
Confirmed. Michelle, there's this piece behind you in blue. And I've just noticed there's some sort of, I guess, marking at the top, like what is going on here? Where,
Marking at the top, like these things.
oh yeah, and then under there's the other kind of like shiny texture.
Yeah.
It's
So
really
it's
cool.
pretty much like glaze that I put it there so it could drip almost as it's just like oozing. Obviously I really love like holes apparently, obviously. So working with those kind of like entryways and like transparencies and different like dimensions and space again. And yeah, so this was one of my pieces that I had in my slice of life show. And obviously again with the over the top decoration of textiles and tassels. Yeah.
It's really cool. Loving those contrasts and what you're doing there with the colors. So you mentioned you have an exhibition coming up, and you said August. And so for those that might not be acquainted with August Studios, you're not speaking about the month. You're speaking about a place in Vancouver called August Studios, right?
No, 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 no. I'm,
Oh,
but like, shout out to August Studios, I guess. No, no, no. I'm doing my presentation in the month of August at
okay.
Duplex Art Gallery. So we have actually a gallery space here where everybody should have their eyes peeled. I hate to say that actually, like just their on it. And so yeah, there's gonna be a bunch of shows happening in our brand new slash old but renovated gallery space. And I'm having a show there in the end of summer, which is kind of sad, but hopefully there's, because you know when is summer ends? I think August, no? I don't know.
Goodness,
Anyway.
I don't know. Somewhere when fall starts.
Times. I just love summer so much. So August seems like it's gone. But hopefully it's gonna be enough sunny days for people to come hang out at this new gallery and I don't know, like look at my work and we can just hang out. I don't know.
Enjoy your collection.
Yeah, start your
Okay,
collection
so
with my work.
yes, month of August. And what is the name of the gallery space?
Duplex. Pretty much our gallery space is called Duplex. That's it. If you follow Duplex Art Society, there's gonna be obviously more details coming up as the show leads on to starting and beginning. But yeah, Duplex Art Society is the place where I'm currently residing in regards of my art practice, and I'm joined by a bunch of talented artists in this facility. One of them, my fantastic studio, my Hee-Jun.
Perfect. Okay, we will definitely keep that in mind, and of course, we'll give a shout out. And yeah, I can't wait for that. And so, if people are being shy and we don't have any more questions, maybe there's anything else you would like to add, Michelle, or not?
Well, for distribution, please don't feel shy to support your local artists, but also to support your local communities in regards of giving those extra bucks if you're able to grassroots organizations that have been doing a lot of labor. There is a lot of communities here that are more than happy to grab some bucks or some donations. Shout out to frontline workers and also frontline activists that are putting a lot of work. There is the Tenants Union happening in Vancouver. There's also Black Arts Vancouver. There is several land back organizations that are helping with Fairy Creek and other groundwork as activists. There is also Distro Disco, which is a community-based grassroots organization that brings free stuff to the houseless. So yeah, I think that that's something that I really want to bring up to whoever is watching this and to delve a little bit more into which communities would be more than happy to grab those extra bucks if you're able, or how is it that you can get in touch with communities that are in current need in this city, because I think it's our labor as citizens or just people in this area to give back to those grassroots community organizations that are doing a lot of the work that is necessary and a lot of times work that has been forgotten by many of us. So besides that, I don't know, I'm an open book. Any of you are more than welcome to always reach out. I'm pretty nice and funny. So I think at least we should all be friends. Like if you're already here, let's just be friends. So I want to open that conversation too.
Love it. Thank you so much, Michelle. So I'm just gonna go back to share my screen and remind everyone to follow your account. So we can follow your work through at Bourget Michel on Instagram. Is that right? Do you have any other place where we should follow your work? What happened? Why can't I hear you anymore?
Oh, yeah, no.
Yes, you can follow me at Bourget Michel, and yeah, just that's the one. I have another one, but that's mostly just my studio outfit pics. But if you're into that, you should definitely follow Hello Cowboy too, in case you're curious what I'm wearing. But honestly, that seems a little bit egotistical. But either way, yes, reach out. Let's be friends. Let's chat about art and critical making and giving back. So I'm always an open book.
Thank you. And Doris shared the link on the chat where people can grab that.
Bourget, I have a question for Michelle. Sorry. I was wondering, have you been able to share your work in Mexico, or are you planning to?
Well, I'm just like, it's like my Frida Kahlo moment when she's like, I have to have a show in Mexico. And then like she did, and then she died like a few weeks after or something like that. So tragic. But yes, so I have never had the opportunity, honestly. I'm at Open Doors. If anybody out there is looking for a queer Mexican artist from northern Mexico, please reach out. I would love to have a show in Mexico. It's like, it would kind of be like full cycle for me. It's like to be able to like bring that conversation to where I'm from, quite literally to the air I used to breathe. I think that would be so powerful, but not yet, but soon. I would say soon. The answer is soon.
I hope that we're definitely going to see that happen. It will happen. Just like calling. I believe in calling. We're calling it.
Fully. Okay. Yeah, I'm putting that into the universe currently.
Well, Michelle, I hope we get to see you at our next event and everybody else here. So we love online events because we can share them afterwards with other people that couldn't make it. But in-person events are also pretty cool. And we'll be celebrating the 200, I guess, bicentennial anniversary of the independence of Brazil with Fernanda Cunha and Rex Schwagers. I hope I pronounced that properly. And so Doris will also be sharing the link for those tickets, which are very, very accessible. They're only $15. And if you're a member, memberships are $5. You can get those tickets for $12. And I think there's still some seats left.
Yeah, we're running out of seats. Yes.
Yay! Yay for the arts. I clap for the arts and for independence of Brazil.
Love it. And Michelle, thank you so much, and for everyone here, for everyone at VLACC for making this possible. And again, this is going to be available through our YouTube channel. And I'm just so happy that we made this happen. So
thank you, so everybody. Thank you for having me. This has been a lovely experience. Honestly, the work that you're doing for Latin American community here in Vancouver and for the art community, it's just amazing, and I cannot thank you enough for all these labor and work. And thank you everybody who come to the talk. I hope you liked it, and I hope I didn't talk too fast or jumped around stuff. But thank you again. Thank you for having me. I'm truly like flabbergasted. I'm so happy.
Thank you. Well, if everybody else is as happy, as excited as us, we are really excited to keep on working on trying to open this physical space for the first center for Latin American arts and culture. So if you want to help with that, keep on coming to our events, tell people about us, give us a shout out. You're always welcome to make small donations or big donations. If donations are not possible, again, shout outs are the best. And so that's it. Thank you so much for being here tonight. I am going to leave the call open for any of you to grab those links. I'll be turning my camera off, and we can't wait to see you at our next events. And Michelle, buenas noches.
Buenas noches, buenas tardes o días. Gracias a todos.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.